Hello, this is Asia Rezan, and this is a LiterAuntie. I have to make my apologies. Last week, I was sick. I haven't had allergies in years, and lo and behold, it showed up and showed out. So needless to say, I couldn't even get what I wanted to say out. Even the recording that I made, I didn't think it was good enough due to the fact that I sound so stuffed up, and I just refused to even go out like that. So my apologies, and another apology. I was going to do Toni Morrison. I had promised a friend of mine that I would go into the book Sula. However, I decided that I wanted to go a little bit deeper, and I'm going to make that a 3-part series. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and do a little something for the culture. And yes, we're still in books. So today, we're going to do a colored girl story. We're going to talk about my girl, Ntozake Shange. During the cold winter ice storm in 1994, I was stuck in a house with no electricity, no television, and hardly any warm food. What I had was enough batteries that would let me listen to Snoop Doggy Dogg's Doggy Style over and over again, a notebook, and a book that I had seen at several college shelves, but was only bold enough to finally pick it up. The book was called For Colored Girls Who Had Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough, an introduction for a soon-to-be womanist/poet/filmmaker/superwoman. I held in my hand a book that introduced me to me, my mother, grandmothers, and aunts, ancestors who I had no idea of their existence and experiences until I finished turning the tattered pages for the 5th time the next year while I was without much inspiration but full of baby, close to 9 months. In the beginning, the words were hard to comprehend, not understanding the movements of the words and the women until the pages convinced me that as a colored girl, I was a blues note, I had nothing to be sorry for, and for me, finally won me over, telling me that I wasn't alone in that confusion of colors that expanded in the rainbows when it felt like I had nothing to look forward to. See, between 1994 and 1995, I was told that there was nothing to live for and that my life meant nothing, especially as a pregnant college dropout who saw no future. Somehow her work found me. We'll just say my ancestors prepared me for a time when my creativity went dark and I needed someone, anyone, to please sing me a black girl song. When Ntozake Shange, who was born October 18, 1948 and died October 27, 2018, created For Colored Girls, it was not at the best of times for her. Though she had found a voice through college, receiving honors at Barnard and Columbia, her personal life was shattered as she suffered from depression and thoughts of suicide. In earlier years, she had attended non-segregated schools, received several threats, harassment, and suffering through racism around her. These impressionable moments, as well as the ending of a marriage with a man she married her first year of college, brought on the thought of ending her life 4 times. But in this, she found a savior. Her savior was a rainbow. Shange, who had been writing since she was a child, found inspiration through her moments, her pain, and those conversations centered around women of color who experienced abortion, heartache, the first time, abuse, one-night stands. A country girl like myself took those lyrics and experienced everything through those pages. I cried, I laughed, then cried again. In the center of the book, she found me. I am really colored and really sad sometimes, and you hurt me more than I ever danced. I am ready to die like a lily in the desert, and I couldn't let you in on it because I didn't know. Here's what I have: poems, big thighs, little tits, and so much love. Will you take it from me this one time? Please, this is for you. I was left behind with a son who had not yet been born. Someone who exclaimed their love for me left 13 days before the screams of pain and 26 years of scuffle, heartache, and triumph would reach me. I had the words, "You ain't nobody," constantly running through my head while I carried the world in my belly, praying that all the pain that I felt at that moment would not seep into his head. As a pregnant poet with writer's block, the words carried me over until the 9th month, the 13th hour, and the 3rd push, and I yearned for them. needed when I had been told that I was less. Yet a part of me begged to be loved with no apologies. When the thoughts of going back to a place I hurt, I made myself recite a few words that reminded me of who this man, the man who walked away and kept walking long after I found my footing, was. I got a real dead loving here for you now, because I don't know anymore how to avoid my own face wet with my tears, because I had convinced myself that colored girls had no right to sorrow. I lived for you. I know I did it for myself, but I couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand being sorry and colored at the same time. It's so redundant in the modern world. Several years after I had survived childbirth, dirty diapers, and questions of disappearing acts, I found my footing between pages of recycled coffee paper and microphones that at the time very seldom saw a colored girl like me on stage to perform 3 minutes and 10 seconds of a poem that she wrote. I could never imagine touching a stage and reciting poetry such as Kerouac, Ginsberg, or Angelou, but I did it to relieve the pain. I did it because in 1997, there were so few colored girls in Memphis at the time who were willing to do a poetry slam in front of a group of white poets who could not understand the pain of a single mom who yearned to be seen just as any other poet. I can happily say that knowing her words and keeping them close to me made it easier to be unapologetic, female, black, magic, and realistic. Her poetry placed me in a space of celebration without questioning who I was or judging me by the dark spaces that I had been in, whether it was the back of a Chevy or spaces in where I questioned if this life was worth living. Even in the sorry poem, the message was made clear. I'm not going to be nice. I will not call. I'm not going to be nice. I will raise my voice and scream and holler and break things and race the engine and tell all your secrets about yourself to your face, and I will list in detail every one of my wonderful lovers and their ways. I will play Oliver Lake loud, and I won't be sorry for none of it. There are no apologies for being angry, embracing, being loud, or deciding what to be sorry for. I stopped apologizing for being myself every time I touched a microphone, whether it was in Memphis or in front of the New Eurekan Poets, which Shange had been one of the founders of. Like myself, her production would move women like me, Jackie Harry, who had been in her first production on September 15th, 1975, in her off-Broadway production, Alfred Woodard and Lynn Whitfield, who found themselves performing in the PBS version, and several women who read, recited, or heard the words that moved a rhythm in them and reminding them that as a colored girl, they were still moving to the ends of their own rainbows and shaking the ground along the way. For myself, it would be several years later when I found myself getting a buzz cut from this phenomenal poet from a hotel room in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, that I knew that I was touched by greatness. Years later, I reached out to her to ask to use a quote for a film I was creating and received a yes with no hesitation. When she passed away a week before the film premiered, I was shaken and heartbroken, but in my heart of hearts, I knew she would be in a better seat to see that her words resonated with me from the moment I opened the book on the cold steps in Jackson, Tennessee in 1994 to the silver screen in 2018. In that moment, in the first glance of her words staring back at the audience, she made me find God in myself, and I loved her fiercely.